Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video. As you probably know, I'm Sarah Hornsby and I am your online myofunctional therapist. And in this video, I want to explain that tongue ties are more than just a breastfeeding problem. So many people are starting to kind of jump on this bandwagon of looking at tongue ties, and we're starting to see a little bit of a backlash. A lot of people are saying it's being overdone or overdiagnosed. And to me, this is something that's been around for a really long time, and I've been talking about this for several years, and so have all the other myofunctional therapists out there. Tongue ties are more than just a breastfeeding problem. That's often when it's first noticed, is when a mother is trying to feed her baby and she's struggling and she can't, and the baby's not gaining weight, the latch isn't good. But sometimes tongue-tied babies, they nurse okay and they get missed. Sometimes babies are tongue-tied, they have it released, and then they breastfeed better. Sometimes babies are only bottle fed and we never even know they're tongue-tied. So there's a lot of stuff going on just in terms of what's happening with the baby. Now, what if someone gets totally missed and they're tongue-tied and they're older, they're kids or adults, and they never breastfed, they never had problems gaining weight. It doesn't mean that tongue tie doesn't affect them. So how does this affect kids? It can be a speech problem. Kids who are tongue-tied often have trouble saying R and L sounds, and sometimes they're in speech therapy for years and years working on the R sound, and they actually have a tongue tie. So to me, this is a pretty big deal. So we've got to get the education out there for all of us, not just the dental people, but the speech therapists too. Tongue ties and speech issues go hand in hand. Now, the other thing is that it affects oral development and facial and jaw development. So it doesn't mean that if you're tongue-tied, you're going to be fine if you breastfed and you don't have speech issues. If you are tongue-tied, your jaws and mouth will develop smaller, your teeth will be more crowded, and you will develop these myofunctional issues that connect to having sleep apnea and jaw pain and bigger issues later in life. And now I'm speaking in broad terms. I'm sure there are people who are tongue-tied and they live to be 100 years old and they've never had a single issue. I'm sure those people are out there. I see the people who come to me because they're having a lot of problems. So the adults I see who maybe they didn't have speech issues, maybe they end up, they're pretty much fine until they're in their 30s, 40s, or 50s. And that's when they start to have some bigger health issues. So sometimes it's chronic pain. This is usually one category of adults that I work with. So they've got chronic headaches, chronic migraines, chronic tension and pain in their face, their jaws, their head and neck. They're sore all the time. And some days are better than others, but they've always got chronic underlying pain and tension. This can be connected to being tongue-tied, because think about what's happening. If you've got thick, bound up fascia that's pulling on the muscles and you don't have that free movement of your tongue, it can't be good. What's happening is every time the tongue moves, the mandible has to go with it. So the tongue and the mandible become connected, almost like one entity. So when a person speaks, every time they speak, their jaw's moving forward or left and right more than it should be, and that TMJ joint gets tired and worn out. The disc, the condyles, everything in here starts getting inflamed and reacting, and the pain radiates out into the face, down into the back of the neck, and that's just only one aspect of it too. The other aspect is when you're tongue-tied and you're speaking, eating, drinking, anything you do with your mouth, other muscles are having to be recruited from the jaw, from the neck, and all over the place. These muscles shouldn't be working during speech or during eating, but because the tongue is restricted, other accessory muscles have to team up to help the tongue, not because the tongue is not doing its job. So a lot of adults I see have a lot of pain, and when they have the tongue tie released, that's the first piece of the puzzle. Sometimes after years and years of dysfunction, it doesn't mean that pain is just going to magically go away. But sometimes it does. Sometimes people get amazing, amazing relief from having that tongue tie release as an adult. Other times people need to learn how to disconnect the movement of the tongue from these other muscles that they've been using their whole life to use the tongue. So that's why it's so important to work with a myofunctional therapist. a craniosacral therapist, cranial osteopath, and sometimes an orthodontist or orthotropic specialist to help undo these dysfunctions that have been occurring for years and years and years because of an underlying tongue tie. So I know that's a lot of information. I hope it makes sense to you guys. Please post comments and let me know if you have any questions, and I will be making more videos like this for you in the future.